Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dharma Helper and this is DH Reviews. This is my Season 2 Episode 4 review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. If you want to check out the other Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos that I put out so far on the channel, there will be a link in the description of this video, as well as an annotation on the side of the screen here for you to click, and that will take you right to the playlist that I created that has all the videos that I put out about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for you to watch and get caught up on. Also, earlier this week, I put out my Gotham Season 1 Episode 4 review, which I will link in the description of this video as well, if you want to watch that and get caught up on that. With that being said, Season 2 Episode 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was called I Will Face My Enemy, and it was about this painting that had survived a fire in a church, and on the back of the painting was writing that was similar to the writing that we've seen Phil write, and we've seen Garrett write. So the team resolves to steal this painting from the charity event that was being held to help rebuild the church that was burned in the fire. And the episode is basically Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. butting heads again and having that arms race and trying to one-up each other and trying to get this painting and figure out what is going on with the writing and why it's happening and what properties this writing might have and what its effect on Garrett was and what its effect on Phil is. And so that's the basic story of the episode. Again, is that duality and the conflict between Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. as they're trying to scramble to acquire all this information and acquire all these different things that are going to help them one-up each other. And so with that kind of covered and the story kind of covered, I want to talk a little bit about the characters in the episode. And the main characters this episode were May and Phil, who infiltrate the charity event and who are basically charged with trying to get the painting and trying to get out and all this different stuff. And the interaction that May and Phil have over this episode was really enjoyable. They talk a little bit about the nostalgia of the old days and how they work together and all this different stuff. And, their back and forth and their chemistry I thought was pretty interesting and pretty entertaining. Overall, they had a very sort of classic spy vibe with them. You can't really get more classic spy vibe than infiltrating a charity event, trying to pull off a heist, trying to duck out laser walls and laser beams and stuff. And so to get that old classic spy vibe out of the show, I thought specifically out of those two characters, I thought was really entertaining. And it was a nice change of pace from the sort of high-tech stuff that we've seen in the series. And I thought that was really cool to watch. And I thought, a great pairing of Phil and May. And specifically talking a little bit more about May and Phil this episode, the reason that they kind of went on that mission was so that May could monitor Phil and so that they could, again, like I said, figure out what's going on with Phil. And they're keeping that from the team. And I'm interested to see how long that lasts, how long they're able to keep that from the team. They talk about the contingency plan, May and Phil basically trying to badger May about, we need a contingency plan about what happens if I turn out to go the way of Garrett and I lose my mind a little bit. And May avoids the subject over the course of the episode, and at the end of it, she says, we don't need to talk about the plan because I already have a plan. I'm going to set you up here in Australia. You're going to have a cabin. If you start to lose your mind, we're going to get you out, and we're going to get you safe. And I thought that was interesting to see that out of May, because if you go back and you look at my reviews and everything that I've said about May, in my opinion, she is a soldier, and a good soldier, and someone who follows orders and stuff like that. And she's not very, she is not averse to following orders, whatever those orders are. And in this episode, we finally see that line and that order that she's not willing to follow, because Phil says, cross me off, kill me if I ever turn into what Garrett was turning into. And May's not willing to do that. And I thought that was touching to see that out of May, to see the line that she's not willing to cross. And I think that's a huge theme for this season, is that line for each character and for each person. There has to be a line that they're not willing to cross. Otherwise, like I said in my reviews, we're going to see little to no difference between Hydra and between S.H.I.E.L.D. And so, again, I was impressed, and actually I enjoyed seeing more out of May this episode, and that line that she's not willing to cross, as well as her open up a little bit more and not be so much the quiet, sort of brooding, sort of silent type, and actually open up and contribute. And she was laughing and joking, and she wasn't necessarily enjoying the laughing and the joking and the mingling, but the fact that she was doing it, making an effort, I thought was entertaining to watch, and it was a nice step forward for that character. Phil is struggling very hard to maintain himself, and the fact that he's actually willing to die rather than go any further with this disease, or whatever you want to call it, speaks to the gravity of the situation, and it speaks to his mindset at this stage in the game. And again, we're seeing Director Coulson more and more, and Agent Coulson less and less, and he's, very adamant about making tough decisions and making the hard choices. But one thing I want to say is, to me, right, why would you force May to do that? Force somebody else to kill you. If you really wanted to die that bad, if it got that bad, to me, why don't you just, do it yourself? But maybe Phil's thinking is, at one point he's going to cross into that Garrett territory where he won't necessarily understand that he's slipping, or he won't want to cross himself off. But, that's a whole other thing. So to see how far he slips and how far he falls before action has to be taken is going to be interesting to watch. And not only that, but to see who picks up the mantle and takes that action and makes the hard decision, because May's not going to do it. And so I think the way that this episode played out, they're setting it up so that Skye is going to do it. But again, because like I've talked about over the course of my reviews, Skye and Phil have been drifting further and further and further apart. She is not quite his right-hand lady as she was in the first season. And again, she addresses him very professionally, very coldly in this episode, calls him director. And again, in that first season, she was calling him, Phil, AC, all that stuff. And that distance, and the fact that we've already seen Skye cross Donnie, or whatever the guy's name was, cross him off. The fact that we've seen that Skye's able to make the tough choice, and then compound that with the fact that she's drifting further and further and further away from Phil as he's keeping these secrets from her, I think that's what they're setting up. And I think if I'm right about that, I'm going to be a little bit sad, because again, that goes back to what I talked about not wanting to see Agent Skye, wanting to see Skye return to herself that she was in the first season. So that covers my thoughts on Phil and on May. And the second big part of this episode was Fitz. And we see in the bus, we see Skye and Triplet and Hunter and Mac all bonding, and Fitz is sort of shy and distant, and he's reluctant to get involved in that bonding process. And his Jiminy Cricket Fitz, his Jiminy Cricket Simmons kind of urges him and goads him and convinces him to open up a little bit over the course of this episode. And we see in this episode him start to recover a little bit better. He's able to contribute a little bit more to the team, because over the course of the episode they are infiltrated and the bus is sabotaged, and he's able to he has that scene where it's basically him doing some kind of weird version of charades almost, where he's throwing out ideas, and the rest of the team is sitting down and they're all like, okay, what are you thinking of? Are you thinking of the electrical system? And he's like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. That's gonna go boom, and we're all gonna die, and then we have to, and then, you know, Triplet or Sky will say, we have to fix that. We have to not blow up. And he'll be like, yeah, that's what I was thinking. We're not gonna have to blow up. And so to see that was kind of funny. That was kind of cool. And to see him grow, I think, was important. And to get his confidence back. And we're seeing him get his confidence back, and I'm super excited to see Fitz get his confidence back and become a contributing member of the team again. And one thing that I did want to touch on is that, to me, it's a little bit strange and a little bit sad that the original members of the team, Sky and Simmons and Triplet, and the original members of the team like May and Coulson, are all drifting away from Fitz and keeping him at a distance and not treating him with the care and the respect that he needs to be treated with. And instead we're seeing Mac and Hunter in this episode. Hunter steps up and helps Fitz with the electrical wiring, and then at the end of the episode they share a beer and all that stuff. So we're seeing the new guys treat Fitz a little bit better than the old guys, and we're seeing the new guys sort of take Fitz in, and that's a strange dynamic for me to see. And where that goes is going to be cool and interesting, because I think there's a little bit of resentment on Fitz's part, where he, again, doesn't necessarily appreciate that Sky and Coulson and May and Triplet are keeping him at a distance, and but at the same time, Mac and Hunter are drawing him closer. So that sort of clique dynamic, where on the one side we have Mac and Hunter and Fitz, and then on the other side we have Triplet, May, Sky, Coulson. That sort of split and schism is going to be interesting to explore. Fitz, again, he's opening up more and he's recovering more, and at the end of the episode he has that beer with Hunter and Mac, and he talks about how, because earlier in the episode when they were bonding and Fitz had been on the sidelines, they were talking about their exes and stuff, and Fitz says that he didn't necessarily have an ex, but he liked a girl and she didn't feel the same way about him, and so she left. And so I think exploring that and expounding on, you know, the Fitz and Simmons relationship is going to be very important for Fitz to get over that and to move forward. And another thing that I thought was interesting was when Fitz started to open up, and when Fitz started to accept and to reintegrate himself with Mac and with Hunter, Jiminy Cricket Simmons disappeared. And I thought that was an interesting touch, and it's going to be heartwarming to see that Fitz, the damage that Fitz is sustained because of Ward, is not as irreparable as he thought it would be. And to see Fitz slowly come out of his shell, like I said, is going to be really impressive. So that covers the bus and my thoughts on my thoughts specifically on Fitz, and my thoughts on, again, that dynamic between Hunter and Mac and Fitz and that sort of team. Talking a little bit about Sky, she's looking into the painting, and she's looking in, because, like I said, May and Coulson don't necessarily tell everybody the whole truth behind the mission, but Sky is looking into that and looking into what might be going on with this painting. And again, I think they're setting that up to where Sky's going to have to make a really tough decision. But I hope she makes the right choice, and I hope we see her return to the way that she was in season 1 and not go further and further into almost May territory and Ward territory, where she's the agent and she crosses people off and she doesn't really get bothered by it. Because the fact is that, again, you really should be bothered by the things that are hard decisions. And Skye we saw in the last episode with the heart monitor, she was just able to make these decisions and cross Donnie off like that and not really have a problem with it. And that's going to go back to that line of, we are S.H.I.E.L.D. and this is what we do, and they are Hydra and that's what they do. So transitioning from that into Hydra, again, they have that whole face mask thing where they impersonate Talbot and they impersonate May. And so to see that they are not only a little bit more advanced in technology, but also they have those strike teams, so they're a little bit more advanced in manpower, that's going to be kind of a dangerous scenario, because Hydra is 1 or 2 steps away, I'd say, from really striking a huge blow on S.H.I.E.L.D. And when that happens, and the tipping point for that is going to be interesting, because they have more manpower and they have access to all this stolen technology. And like I said, they are 1 or 2 steps away from making a really big play here. And they conflict a little bit. Whitehall conflicts a little bit with Raina at the end of the episode and trying to get the obelisk back. And to me, he gives her that ultimatum, 48 hours or I'm going to kill you, basically. And to me, that was a mistake. And that's a mistake that Whitehall's not necessarily going to understand or pay for until it's a little bit too late, because Raina's working with Skye's father, and I think Skye's father is the kind of dangerous person to sort of laugh off anything that Whitehall threatens him or Raina with. And he's going to go up to Raina and he's going to basically be like, look, okay, I think that's kind of cute that they think that they can bully you around and beat you up and all this stuff. And you know what, Raina? Why don't you let me handle Whitehall and let me have a conversation with Whitehall, and I think I'll be able to sort this out. And, he's going to confront Whitehall and be like, you know what? You got me. I got the obelisk. You think you can have the obelisk back, but fact is, dude, you can't. I'm going to keep it. Not only that, but I'm going to wipe you out. I'm going to wipe Hydra out. I'm going to wipe S.H.I.E.L.D. out. So I think Skye's father is pretty dangerous, and he's going to, like I said, laugh off Whitehall's attempts at threatening him, and he's going to be very upfront about the fact that he's powerful, because we heard about in season 1, he's a monster and he's powerful and he's all this different stuff and he's an 084. And so when he finally reveals that, is going to be in a big way, and the biggest way I could think is just to take a strike out at Hydra and to say, you know what, dude, what you're talking about with this whole obelisk thing is really unfortunate, because the obelisk is mine, and I don't want to kill you and all this different type of stuff, but you kind of leaving me no choice here, and if you don't back off, I'm going to have to go ahead and do some very unfortunate things. So, like I said, that whole 3-way sort of battle between S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra and Raina and Skye's father is going to be dangerous, but also entertaining. And it's going to be interesting to see where everybody falls, because that old adage of the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So maybe S.H.I.E.L.D. Or Coulson specifically makes a very tough decision like he's been making, and he aligns himself with Raina, and he aligns himself with Skye's father. Or maybe something else happens, and we'll see sort of uneasy alliances or uneasy partnerships or temporary partnerships or something. But again, going back to Skye's father, I think he's dangerous, but he's also, that one scene that we saw him in, he was very quiet, very charismatic, very sort of in charge. And that speaks to danger to me. That says that he's got something under him, that he's dangerous. So that covers my thoughts on the characters that we saw in this episode, and just overall thoughts on the episode. It was a little bit of a lighter episode, and a little bit of a problem, like a slower episode, of a pace problem is what I was trying to get out. And that's kind of the problem that they had in season 1 with the pacing and stuff, and that's creeping back a little bit with this episode. But it wasn't a bad episode. It was an enjoyable one-off sort of classic spy episode, and I like that vibe. And again, I liked setting up the Whitehall versus Reyna and Skye's father scenario, and I liked the stuff that had Fitz in it, seeing Fitz develop and grow a little bit. And I'm interested again to see what happens with May and Coulson and Skye. So with that said, again, I enjoyed the episode, and if you enjoyed the review, leave a like down below so I know I'm headed in the right direction and I'm doing good here. If you want to see more reviews like this, like my Gotham reviews, like my Scorpion reviews, which will be out tomorrow, subscribe to the channel and you'll see those reviews as they come out. If you want to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at the DH Reviews, and we can talk about the episodes a little bit more in depth. And you can comment down below, and specifically you can comment maybe about some of the stuff that I talked about, or some of the stuff that I might have missed. Give me your opinion on Skye and Coulson. Do you think that do you agree with me that Skye is going to have to make that decision and cross Coulson off, or is something else in play here? Comment about the Whitehall and Skye's father. Comment about that conflict. Do you agree with me that Skye's father is a little bit dangerous and he's going to be a little bit more of an antagonist moving forward, or do you have something to add about that? Comment about Fitz and his growth in this episode. Do you think there's hope for Fitz? Do you think he's actually recovering faster and faster and faster? Or do you think that something's going to happen and he's going to fall back into that psychosis a little bit with imaginary Jiminy Cricket Simmons? Or what are your thoughts on that? Again, thank you guys for watching. And if you want to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. alongside me here, it comes on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. on ABC, so you can watch that with me and talk about the episodes with me. So with that all being said, again, I've been Dharma Helper, and I want to thank you guys for watching. This has been DH Reviews, and I will see you in the next video.